Why is staying alone
Mhm.
so difficult?
Well, because you got other people that don't want you to. They prefer you to listen to what they got to say and then agree or follow their path. When you stand alone, some people can't afford, don't know how to be alone.
Welcome to Mended Men's Conversations, life lessons of legacy, where real men have real conversation. I'm Anthony
And
Washington.
I'm Titus Garnett, and we're here to dive deep into the struggles, victories, and lessons that shape us as men. From mental health and fatherhood to faith, identity, and purpose, breaking the silence and starting the conversations that matter.
We have over 12 years of professional experience and over 140 years of combined life experience as fathers, sons, brothers, husbands, friends, educators. We are you. We know that healing starts with honest dialogue. So let's get real. Let's get ready. Let's grow together. This is Mended Men's Conversation. Let's dive in.
Standing alone doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're set apart. Let's talk about the strengths in being different. The first subject matter was why standing alone feels hard. The pressure to fit in and to conform. And we talked about how whatever the group says, we may not feel comfortable with the way the group feels about a subject, about a situation. That group could be a group of two or more, could be job, could be relationship, could be family, some way, somehow, or you just sitting around with the fellas talking. The next one is finding confidence in being different, learning to embrace individuality. And Mr. Anthony, it sounded like you was about to have a comment on that.
Yes, finding confidence in being different. When you find confidence in being different, you're really getting to know who you really your true self are.
That's a good
You
point.
know, you're getting to know who you truly are, and that's when that confidence starts to build out. You start to learn some things about yourself, and you start to embrace them. You know, when you do that, one of the things I experience a lot when I embrace who I am. I get a lot of negative feedback from other people because they can be used to how they perceive me in the past and assume that that's the way I'm going to act today. So that's just one cause of that confusion. You know, they're not comfortable with who I am. The bottom line of it is, long as I am comfortable with who I am, that's all that really matters. You know, not stepping on anybody else's toes, but just learning to be comfortable in my own shoes, and learn to be comfortable in a crowd. Because I did mention before, I think before we got disconnected, is that how can you be comfortable? Can you function in a crowd and still feel that you can stand on your own? And I say yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I say yes to that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it this way, not just being comfortable and being in a crowd, but being comfortable of being different in a crowd.
Right.
Okay, especially when you are not conforming to the crowd, to the thoughts of the crowd. All right, to the thought of because sometimes in a situation of a group situation, if there is a leader in a group, could be supervisor, could be the elder of a family structure or whatever, and everybody seems to be yes man, all right? And you're not a yes man. But the idea you're not being different because you just like taking the opposite side. You're different because, like you mentioned earlier, you know who you are. And I add to that is you know who you are, but why you're different, you have a justification as to why you're different to the crowd or to everybody else.
Yeah.
All right.
But what I was going to say is that I think it's the beauty of being different. And we all differ from each other, but the beauty in that is that we can learn from each other. Because imagine if we all was the same, how boring that would be. But that's not the way life is. We're all different, and we all have different opinions, and that's how we grow and learn. From each other. Because me and you can disagree on things, but even though we disagree, I can still learn from you, and you can learn from me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of
Mm-hmm.
being different. You know what I mean?
Now, the thing about me learning from you, I need you to justify on your terms and your idea as to why, what am I learning from? Are you telling me the reason you're different? Let's just say you and I have a conversation like we're doing
Mm-hmm.
now. And I say one thing, you say another, and I want you to justify why you making that statement. Why are you being that way? Give me a reason, or not give me a reason, telling me what I'm trying to learn or what I'm trying to understand. Let's put it that way. What am I trying to understand from you? All right. Now, I'm not saying to do that now, but that's my take, because you and I, we may say something. I say to you, no, I'm just completely opposite. And then I stop right there. Oh, opposite as to what? As to why? If we having that type of conversation.
Well, I think that's good to disagree, but like you said, I say is that if it's just what we talk about now, learning how to embrace my individuality, and now I'm learning about who I am. How much can I
Mm-hmm.
endure what I don't like, what I do like? These are things that I'm learning to embrace. The good as well as just as the bad.
Yeah.
So something like that, now if you would disagree on it, well, I don't know how you would. How would you disagree on that? We can both have our opinions on that. I mean, on this particular topic, we do agree on that much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
to.
See, sometimes we go into the underlying of different examples, what you may have in your head as an example versus what I have in my head as an example or
Sure.
experience. Because sometimes when we take a subject, certain things come into our head. Like I'll be talking and you'll come back and you'll say, that reminds me of something.
Because we're speaking about our own
And
experience.
that's right, that's right, that's right. And it may take us someplace else,
Hmm. That's true.
But let's move on a little bit. Now, here's one: the role of faith in standing strong. Biblical examples of men who stood alone. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is Christ, Jesus Christ.
Stood alone.
Okay, standing alone. All right. In other religions, and people could have their other beliefs in faith, and they stand alone. You can look at Buddha. All right, standing alone. You can look at, talk to me.
Stood
Huh?
Malcolm X.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's I don't want to get too deep into just throwing out biblical terms on that. All right. Not Let me rephrase that. Not biblical terms, but picking individual biblical people. All right. Because of religion, people can go into their own spiritual world and pull out who they want. Solomon, David, Peter, any of the apostles, your pastor, or whoever. You can set up biblical examples of people who stand alone and stand strong. But the thing they stood strong in their
Right.
beliefs. All right. Even though you may not understand it, they stood strong in it.
And that's the point. We're showing people, we're bringing up people that stood strong in their faith. And when they stood strong in their faith, the majority was going against it. But
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how much
Mm,
or how many people disagree with them or dislike what they was doing, they continued to stay strong.
yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things you need. In order for you to do that, you have to. You're going to face a lot of controversy on people,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't allow their disapproval to be yours.
No, 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 you can't. Moving on to the next one: overcoming fear of judgment, living for purpose, not approval. The only reason you fear judgment is, let me rephrase that. One of the reasons you may fear judgment is because maybe you're not strong in your belief.
I was gonna say you allow it to somebody else's
Yeah, you
judgment
allow people
seep into your
to
psyche.
shake you. And that's what I meant by going back and say why you feel that way. What's your justification for feeling that way to yourself? Why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? You go back and you justify why you feel that way. If I'm having a conversation with a friend, all right, or with a family member, and they say, well, don't pull the plug on dad. All right, he in the hospital. Don't pull the plug. He said, well, I want to pull the plug because he's in pain. Well, I don't want to pull the plug because he's a fighter. Okay. Now we both justify it, but still, which is the best way for the old man to be treated? Now that's a real tough situation
It
right
is
there.
because you give me your
But you
personal
just don't
opinion
say
of a loved one that's
you're
close to
giving your
you.
personal. That's right. That's right. So,
How does that play out?
but they each want to stand strong in
I
it.
mean,
Yeah. How will it
you know,
play out?
I would say my opinion is that, majority rules.
Well, then I can come back and say, well, Dad always say, if you got him hooked up to a machine, don't let him live that way. Go ahead and let him die.
Yeah. And, and yeah, again, for
You
me, I would
know?
still say if it was siblings, you take a
Yeah.
majority rule, because you gotta
Mm-hmm.
either the majority rules or you're just gonna come to a stalemate. And nobody really is gonna I don't know if you're gonna say suffer, but the family will suffer if he's just my opinion. The family suffers when they're just sitting there. For me, it'd be hard to see you like that, knowing that, we could talk, we used to talk or do things, and now I can't even do that. I can have a conversation with you, but I don't get no response. And you just laying there. And only reason you're
Yeah.
alive is because this machine is keeping you alive.
Yeah.
I'm
It's tough, ain't it?
personally, I'm not comfortable with that. But if it's
Right. But you take the
yeah,
strength.
because it takes a
You
lot
take
out of
the
me.
strength to stand
Yeah,
alone. You standing in your thought process, in your justification, in your feelings, in your, you standing there because that's your
yeah,
belief.
and to what I said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
standing alone and also being part of the crowd. I'm gonna stand on how I feel, but if majority rules against me, I'm going along with it. I still feel the same way. That won't
Right.
change.
But you're still standing on your principles,
Right,
don't you?
right.
Your principles don't change, okay? The outcome changes, but your principles. Just like when we was talking earlier, before we had the technical issues. If I'm on the job and we having our meeting and the supervisor says, okay, this is how we gonna do it, I may not agree with it, but I gotta do it
And ain't nothing wrong with it voicing your opinion.
because that's it. All right. I voice my reasons, my opinion why, but I still got to do it because I'm under authority, and that authority comes from an individual, not really from the crowd. Right. So you still got to take a look at the environment that you're
Hmm.
in. All
You
right.
want to take it because it's a lot.
So,
For me, it would be take a lot I would take in to come to that conclusion. Not how I feel. I mean, I just don't want to take a snap decision. I want to think about it. Because
yeah.
it's important to you.
Yeah. Okay, not every situation that you're standing up for yourself or you're standing alone is a life or death
True.
situation, is a do or die situation, is you got your job, you don't have your job situation. Okay? Sometimes you could make a big deal out of it when it's not necessary to make a big deal out of it. All right? What do you want from the store? Pick me up some chicken. All right? They go pick it up, they come back and you say, hey, ain't no wings in here. You know I like wings. Well, this is all they had. They didn't have no wings. But you know I like wings. So don't make an issue about something that's weak. That is not a standalone
No.
situation that you should make the big deal out of it. All right? So use your
Yeah.
head.
You got to use some
All
wisdom
right, use your head.
in some of these things. If you don't, you just like a dog chasing his tail.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's not a purpose worth that's not a like the title said, living for purpose, not approval. Come on, that doesn't include
No.
that. That is not a big deal purpose right there. All right. That is not. Now you're gonna talk about, okay, we gotta pay these bills versus we need to take a vacation. All right. And they say, everybody want, no, we need a vacation. We need a break. But you say, yeah, but we got to pay these bills and I'm going to pay them. That vacation going to have to wait because the worst thing you're going to do is come back from a vacation and the lights are off. You ain't got no gas to cook. You ain't got this or that. All right. So you said, no, I got to stand up for the work rather than for the relief.
True.
Now, people can look at that as being flaky. All right. But
if you first,
there's things you stand up for. And as a man, since this is a man's conversation, as a man, you're going to find yourself standing up more than you realize and against the crowd more than you realize. Your job, your family, you out on having drinks with the fellas and they say, hey, let's go by and see the ladies on the pole. And you said, no, I don't need to see a lady on the pole unless it's my old lady. All right. And they say, oh, you're a punk, man. You don't need to do this and that. No, I'm standing up for that. No, I don't need that aggravation in my life.
and nobody knows what
All
goes
right.
on in your life
So,
better than you.
yeah. And nobody has the guilt other than you. So you stuck with that. And sometimes people, when you do something wrong, when you try to hide it, it's on your face. You can read it on your
So true.
face, you know? So it's to resist, and we haven't talked about that. Standing up for yourself could be involving resisting temptation.
Excuse me. When you say that, the thought came to my head is that, resisting temptation is that, temptation is out there every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to make those decisions on if this is what you want to do and also be comfortable with some of the feedback that you're getting back. Be comfortable with some of the negative feedback that you're getting.
Yeah.
So you're gonna that's some of the things that you're gonna experience when you stand in your own strength.
Yeah. You got to ignore the people who want you to change or who don't understand what you're
Because
going
9
through.
times out of 10, if they don't understand, it's because they feel like at one point or the other, they're just used to having control.
True. Very much so. Very much so.
And when that
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next one. Encouraging yourself in isolation, finding strength in God's plan for you. We had a bit of a conversation about that, I think a few weeks back,
isolation,
about God's plan. What is God's plan for you? And finding strength in yourself in isolation. Yeah, we kind of brought that up in a conversation of another title or whatever. And I think I had stressed the point that who are you? You got to remember who your relationship with God is. Okay, so who are you? All right, and we got into the spiritual of that. And when we talked about isolation, you are never truly ever alone if you've got God in your life. If you got a higher power, how you take it. All right. If you got that in your life, you have the strength. You're really not isolated. And I know you're thinking deep right now. So I'm gonna shut up and let you throw out that fine thought process.
I was thinking about when you said that. When we used to encourage yourself in isolation. And sometimes when I first heard that word, I said, isolation, but it's good to be by yourself sometimes. Again, getting to know who you truly are, and if you're not happy with yourself, you can't give nobody no happiness. But what you can give them, you give them a lot
No.
of misery, and realizing what is God's plan for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask yourself that, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
come up with these answers yourself. Can't nobody tell you what God's plan is. They can tell you what He would like, His perception of their perception of what they think God's plan is. But again, this is an individual thing.
Well, you brought up something at that time when we talked about that, and which was very good about when you go into isolation to talk with God or to listen from
Right.
God. You needed that private time. You needed that isolation to do that, which is a good
Shut up
point.
those voices.
So sometimes,
Shut up those
Yeah,
outside
shut out the
voices.
voices. Right. That outside voices, outside noise and everything, and even shut out the internal voices that interrupt your quietness. Even your internal voices, you have to shut that out. You have to isolate those things from your head so you can really hear, so you can listen spiritually, internally. All right. And so that may be another type of isolation strength that you may need.
That's true. It's helpful to have that alone time, and you're really
Yeah.
making that connection with your own God and building a strong connection. Like I said earlier,
Yeah.
this is the thing.
Hmm.
I wanted to read that first question. One of the key questions: why is staying alone
Hmm.
so difficult?
Well, because you got other people that don't want you to. They prefer you to listen to what they got to say and then agree or follow their path. When you stand alone, some people don't know how to be alone.
Mm.
And we're not talking about lonely. We're talking about being alone, pulling off onto yourself. And some people are not used to that. Sometimes they're not used to quiet time. All right.
Noise,
In other
chaos,
words, you got to
drama.
go to, right, right. Have you ever tried meditation? When you first start trying to meditate, your mind is running faster than it's ever been run before. So you got to learn to quiet time yourself. It's not that easy. And the slightest little noise, you come out of it. All right. This is difficult to go into yourself, to think about it, to push people out. And even though you're not pushing them out, whenever have you ever told somebody, man, I just want to be alone. I just want to go into myself. There's some things I got to work out. And they don't understand. They feel like you just rejecting them. And it's not that, you got to
You
do it.
do. Really, you don't have much choice in the matter. No, I'm gonna take that back. You got a choice. Either you can follow God's plan or your plan, your own plan. And from my past experience, a lot of times, all the time, my plan doesn't work out. I might get short-term joy, but it don't work out.
Yeah, yeah. Because some results have a long-term path, whereas most of the time we're looking for instant satisfaction
And
or instant
and that
results, stuff right around the corner, and it don't happen like
and that
that,
will lead us into
you
that
know?
next sentence. How can men gain confidence
Yeah.
in their uniqueness? Now, this has a lot of weight with it. You see a lot of people just automatically follow the path because that's what this person is saying.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like become robots. Nobody start to thinking for themselves what is good and what is
Yeah.
bad. But gaining confidence in your own uniqueness is something real. I think it is unique in its own way. Because that will have you stand out from the crowd, but you're embracing
Mm-hmm.
your true self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anthony, that last line there, how can men gain confidence in their own uniqueness? That goes back to pretty much why we're doing this podcast in the first place. Because we realize we are, as men, especially black men, we are put in different unique situations,
And survive.
all right, where right. We have to be at times in leadership roles, understanding roles, discipline roles. We are put in situations where people can chastise you or say, oh, you got to be a man. They throw that out at you to try to hurt you, to try to inspire you, to try to cut you or whatever. But yourself, you are in a unique situation where sometimes you have to take roles nobody else can or nobody else will. So that takes a greater understanding of ourselves, of our uniqueness, who we are.
And that only comes when you give yourself an opportunity to be quiet.
Yeah, yeah. And you're just sitting there. How many times have you sat there and you're in thought or you working over something in your head and somebody comes up and say, what are you thinking about? What's on your mind? And you just look at them and you go, I'm all right. Everything's cool. They want to get in there and pierce it. No, you're not welcome in there. All right. This is this is me. It's what I have to deal with and go through. You're not welcome, and sometimes you can look at a person and you can see that they're there and you just back off and say, don't worry, I'll holler at you another
Yep.
time. All right. And we have to understand that about each other.
Yeah. Giving each other some space.
There's a time, right? Time to leave it alone, So we're going to end this a little bit earlier right now.
Hey, before you go, I got one more thing for you. If today's conversation spoke to you, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to take that next step in your personal healing and growth, connect with us. We're here to help. You can find us at www.garnettcounseling.com. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And we'll be honored to be part of your journey. Let's keep the conversation going.
Anthony, you got any last word for the millions and millions of people who are listening to us right now?
I ain't gonna say one. I got a few words for them. What we experience today is what we should be able to do in every situation in life. This was an opportunity for us to say, yo, man, we can't connect. Let's wait until next week and do it again. But we was persistent enough to hang in there with it and finally connect and finally got through with it. So, make a long story short, it's just be consistent. Just because their difficulties crop up don't mean that you give up. You keep going.
Right.
You keep going.
Right.
Like I said, I always say, life is like a rose bush. It has its thorns.
Yeah. No matter how beautiful it is. And sometimes you look at the thorns and you forget the beauty.
Yep.
So it works both ways, and we didn't give up. You stay calm, collective, and you try to work out the situation. And that's life. That's a 4-letter word that when you say to people, I'm thinking of a 4-letter word, they always think of the wrong ones. But the toughest one is that LIFE. So this is Titus Garnett.
And I'm Anthony Washington. And Mended Men, thanks for joining us. And we will see you guys and ladies next week.
Thank you. That's a wrap on today's episode of Mended Men Conversations. If something we shared resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Remember, healing is a journey and you don't have to walk it alone. Stay connected with us. Subscribe to the podcast and join the conversation online. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep building your legacy.